Ajnanitimirandasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupeja Apetya Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridaya Munimana Tosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptascha Kamari Tarankamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so we begin as always by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmaniti Leda Pavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asta Tarsat Sri Srimad Abhaya Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padmaniti Leda Pavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asta Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. So we're going to pick up again on the 5th chapter of Sri Bhajanahasya, the chapter which relates to coming to the stage of asakti, right? In the progression from Shraddha to, we go to Bhajana Kriya, where we do activities in sadhana under the guidance of Sri Guru. Then we experience the Nartanavriti, the purification in the heart by this service to Sri Guru, chanting Harinam. And then after Nartanavriti, when we become more fixed, Nishta, right? And then we go to Ruchi, which is chapter 4, where one actually begins to chant Shuddhanam for the first time. Previously we're chanting Nama Aparad, Nama Bas. Even Nama Bas, though, can be very purifying, but we want to get beyond that. Ruchi, when we're becoming situated in the Madhyam stage, second class stage. But then, when we come to Asakti, where deep attachment and realization begin in a much deeper way, higher way. At Ruchi, because of that taste, because of actually the fragrance of Sri Harinam beginning to pervade one's bhajan, the impetus, the enthusiasm increases, by magnitudes. But when by that chanting we come to Asakti, that's when deep attachment comes not just for the limbs of bhakti, for bhajan, but for bhajaniya, the object of our bhajan, right? The object of our bhajan, Radha and Krishna. And as we heard the previous day, that is where the first awakening and realization of one's actual siddha deha, one's internally conceived perfected spiritual form. A glimpse of that, indication of what is my nature, in what mood do I want to serve? Do I have the feelings of parental affection? Do I have the feelings of a friend? Do I have the feelings of a servant? Do I have the feelings of a beloved? Right? Before that, it's general. We're appreciating everything. We're not necessarily having favoritism of one over the other. But as Ruchi progresses and we come into a Sakti, then a very clear and distinct mood arises. Not just for that mood to serve, but under whom we want to serve. What associates of Krishna we're particularly attracted to, who can be our guides. Even in the spiritual world, there are groups, there are group leaders, and under whom we wish to serve. And that begins to awaken in a Sakti. And the verse, the 6 Shastika verses, as we heard, all 8 of them relate to each stage of the progression. And a Sakti is represented by Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram, Patitam Mam Vishambhavam Buddhau, Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja Stitaduli Sadarsham Vichintaya. O son of Maharaj Nanda, as a result of my fruitive activities, I have fallen into this fearful ocean of material existence. Please bestow your mercy upon this eternal servant of yours. Consider me to be just like a speck of dust at your lotus feet, and always accept me as your purchased servant. Not only a speck of dust, but the servant of those other specks of dust at the lotus feet of the Lord. Because these saffron dust particles at the feet of the Lord, these are the eternal associates. Wherever he goes, they also go. Right? And so we heard something very special, that now the qualities of humility, extreme humility, and lamentation intensify. What kind of lamentation? Not the mundane lamentation, oh, my desires for wealth and followers and knowledge and learning and beauty and all these things. Not that lamentation, that these things are not being fulfilled. The lamentation, oh, I am separated from devotees. I have no taste for chanting. I have no direction, no hope, right? Humility. And so as that appearance of that spiritual body begins to become awakened and then confirmed, remember we referred to Sri Jaivadharma through the experience of Brajanath and Vijay Kumar, how that was happening to them. Sri Guru gives one the Ekadash Bhavs, the 11 features of that spiritual form and the specific service and associates that one has in the spiritual world, and instruction how to do that internal service, right? Serving in one's internally conceived form. And that also goes through different stages. And that you can find in detail. We'll find that later in Bhajan Rasya, but also the Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And something else also that we heard, that previously, whatever prayers we were making are being heard by Paramatma. But when you come to this asakti, Krishna himself will begin to hear these prayers. Krishna himself will enter the heart. And then a very special kind of relationship begins. And that's interesting because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear that Sri Guru is the external manifestation of Paramatma, right? So Sri Guru can act in different capacities as well. He can act in a general, broader way as Paramatma, giving general instruction. But when we come to these deeper stages, then he's also the eternal associate of Radha and Krishna and will represent himself to that sadhak according to the mood in which that sadhak wants to serve. So remember, Brajanath saw Gopal Guru as a manifestation of Subal-Saka. Whereas Vijay Kumar, who had an inclination to serve under the guidance of Lalita Saki, saw him as a manifestation or representative of Lalita. So in either case, we're serving Sri Guru as well. So then in the second text which we did, Srila Bhaktivinoda quoted 3 verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which help us understand how this progression happens and by what means we achieve it. And these are from the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, verses 17 through 19. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana, and Nasta Praye Sobhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, and Tada Rajas Tamo Bhava Kama Lobhadayas Chaye. And so we read those, and we read a very beautiful purport about them. But then I thought, okay, and I mentioned this last time, what I want to do is actually go back to the Bhagavatam itself and do a very brief overview of what comes before those verses, right? What comes before them? So let me find what I had here. Just a moment, try to navigate. Not this. Where? There we go. There we go. So, in the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, prior to the second chapter, the sages of Naimasaranya ask 6 specific questions to Sri Sutta Goswami. And the second chapter is where these questions begin to get answered. But this is the entire subject matter of the Bhagavatam. And the second chapter explains the process for answering and the process, the goal, the prayojan, but also the means, the abhideya to achieve it, and an overview of the sambandha, the overall philosophical conception, right? So, the first question they asked, I'm going to do this quickly. The first question they asked was verse 9 of the first canto. Sutta Goswami has come into the assembly of the sages at Naimasaranya, headed by Shonaka Rishi, and all these sages, thousands of them, were seeing the advent of the age of Kali. It actually started, and all these inauspicious things, and by their vision, many of them Trikaligya, could see the horrors of the Kali Yuga unfolding before them. What could they do? On a personal level, to minimize that, or to protect themselves from it, or to help humanity in general, right? So they asked, after glorifying him and accepting him as a exalted representative and wonderful servant and disciple of Shukadev Goswami, and actually Lord Balaram himself, you remember Sutta Goswami was the tiny son of Romaharshan, who was installed as the speaker of the Puranas after he killed his father for disrespect. And so he received instruction from Lord Baladev, all Vedic knowledge imparted in his heart. But then further, he was in the presence of Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami when the Bhagavatam was spoken, right? And thus he heard that. So he was perfectly qualified. So they said, Tat tanjasa yushman bhavata yad vinishtitam pu sang ekantatak shreyas tandak sangsitamarthasi. It's going to be a little sketchy here because I don't have the right fonts, so the Sanskrit is all weird looking. So I'm going to have to do it half by memory. I do my best here. But the English, Srila Prabhupada's translation, please therefore, being blessed with many years, which means very experienced spiritually, explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general. First question, what is the process? What is the path? What is going to benefit these wretched souls in the Kali Yuga? Then the second question, Buddhini buddhi karmani shrotavyani vibhagashaha atastadyo trayat saram samudritya manishaya buruhi badraya bhutanam yenatma supersediti. Now, there are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them, there are many prescribed duties which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, O sage, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied. Now, this is very important because we heard in previous days about the impetus for Srimad Bhagavatam to be written. That after having compiled all the other Vedic literatures, including Mahabharata, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, writing down the different Puranas, Vedavyasa was still not satisfied. Even after writing Mahabharata with Bhagavad Gita and exalted scriptures like Padma Purana, he wasn't fully satisfied. There was something lacking. And Narad Muni explained that it's because these are very glorious things you've written. There's great instruction for humanity. But within these scriptures, and Srila Prabhupada explains this in his commentaries, that there are also other recommendations for service to demigods or how to achieve material prosperity. Even though higher teachings are there, it's mixed up with some of these other things. And people in general being inclined towards material happiness and prosperity will naturally gravitate to that. And so you haven't explained in a completely pure and spotless way the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the sages here are saying, yeah, there's so many scriptures and so many recommendations. And it takes a whole lifetime to serve even one division of it. So give us the essence and explain that. Give us that, especially in Kali Yuga, where the lifetime is short and the intelligence is dull. So then they ask something very specific. Sutta janasi badram te bhagavan satvatam patim devakyam vasudevasya jato jasya chakirshaya. All blessings upon you, O Sutta Goswami. You know for what purpose the personality of Godhead appeared in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva. Right? So now we get to the essence. These sages, they were largely contemporary with Sri Krishna. He disappeared not so long ago. And they're asking for the essence. They're asking, why did the Lord come? What was the purpose of his pastimes? Not in a general way, but that's a very subtle question. You could say, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkatam, dharma sangstarpayata, that I come to establish dharma, I come to kill demons, I come to give protection to the devotees, but also as the son of Devaki, as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, and as the son of Nanda and Jashoda, he came to do something that no other incarnation had done before. Special kind of pastimes that he reveals only once in the day of Brahma. So what is that purpose? They may not even know. They don't know, actually, but they have an inclination, that there's an inkling, not an inclination, an inkling, that there's more to it. Why did he appear? And of course, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna himself explains that I came to show extraordinary pastimes that have never been shown before between me and my devotees in Vrindavan, and especially the gopis, and also to taste them ourselves, not just for the benefit to show them to humanity, certainly that, but also to give us a special taste. And we will be covered by our own Yoga Maya so that we won't have any idea that this is anything but the most sweet, intimate pastimes of myself and my gopis in Naravat Leela, which means they appear to be like human pastimes, but there's such an extraordinary taste and nature and quality to them. And there are so many features of them that are experienced in this Bhoma Vrindavan, this particular Vrindavan in this world. Even though it's not different from Goloka Vrindavan, there's some speciality to the pastimes here that are not tasted up there. Like Krishna being born, being a baby, being a child. This is not seen directly in Goloka Vrindavan. It's understood that Krishna was a baby, he was a child, he took birth, but in Goloka Vrindavan, he's an eternal youth, beautiful youth. But in this Bhoma Vrindavan, he and his devotees get to taste the special pastimes of these different stages, right? and killing demons. There's no demons up there, right? But don't think that at the same time, this Brahma Vrindavan is not different from that Vrindavan. And so they also experience them because pastimes in the spiritual realm are never, they don't disappear by material time, past, present, and future. And we see in Gopal Champu how just by reciting and hearing these pastimes, they enter into them in an extraordinary way. They're sitting there completely absorbed as if they're right there, right? Because Krishna, we hear in this world that Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's narrations are non-different. But in the spiritual realm, they are non-different. And at the same time, they're being experienced in every universe at different stages, right? Wherever he may be. Oh, now he's a baby in this universe. Oh, he's a young child in that universe. So what were the real, deeper reasons? What is all the reasons that he appeared? And this is the really secret, amazing aspect of the Bhagavatam. And then, specifically, describe the pastimes of Krishna, who is Avatari, the source of all the avatars. This verse, his transcendental acts are magnificent and gracious, and great learned sages like Narad sing of them. Please, therefore, speak to us who are eager to hear about the adventures he performs in his various incarnations. Okay, so tell us about Krishna and tell us about his other incarnations as well, which is the subject of the Bhagavatam as well. And also, not just when you talk about his incarnations, you're also talking about his devotees. And this is important because oftentimes people think that, oh, the Bhagavatam is all about Krishna's incarnations. But for us, Bhagavatam is actually about the devotees of these different incarnations and how to understand, like Prahlad Maharaj. How many chapters are there about Prahlad Maharaj before Lord Nrsingadev even appears? It's all about his devotion, his special qualities. And then when Lord Nrsingadev does appear, his special relationship and how the Lord is controlled by his deep love. And in all of the incarnations, we get to see that. And so the conception of what you could call theological perfection, the evolution of that goes through how the Lord displays himself to different degrees. It's like the moon, it's the same moon, but sometimes it's a sliver, sometimes it's a quarter, sometimes it's a half. Same moon, but it may show itself in different degrees. The Lord will show his own qualities to different degrees and exchange loving pastimes with the devotees according to their different adhikar, or the different way in which they desire to reciprocate with him. So, then, O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by his internal powers. Okay, so there we go. Again, more detail. And now that the Lord has left, right? This is the last question. And again, this points to the purpose of this narration of Srimad Bhagavatam by Sutta Goswami. Bruhi Yogeshware Krishna Brahmane Dharma. Okay, I don't know what this word is. I forget the verse. I can't read this at all. I'm going to have to memorize these verses. Sorry. Since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. Actually, I can look this up by just going here. My little phone. Here we go. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. Bruhi Yogeshvare Krishna Brahman Ye Dharma Vartmani Swam Kashtam Adunopete Dharma Kam Sharanam Gataha. Since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have gone for shelter. And of course, the answer to all of these questions are going to be beginning, as I said, in the second chapter. And the Bhagavatam is the shelter of religious principles, complete religious principles. So, I said that since Bhaktivinoda Thakur quoted those three verses, which are more or less the formula for one who is in asakti, who wants to taste it in the deepest way, I wanted to give a background of how the Bhagavatam leads us up to that. So having heard those 6 questions, then Sutta Goswami, he exchanges respects with the different sages, and says, oh, your questions are very worthy, very good questions, because they relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. So, very good. Then he does his Mangalacharana, right? Like Narayanam Namaskritya, right? That Srila Prabhupada would do every day. So then, the first thing that he says is answering the question, what's the supreme occupation? What's the best thing for people? Savai pung sang paro dharmo, jato bhaktira hokkaje, ohaituki pratyata ye atma suprasidati. This is 6th verse of the 2nd chapter. And this is one of those verses. This is one of these mula shlokas, right? Foundational shlokas that everything else is based on. So he begins by saying that the supreme occupation, or dharma, and he's saying supreme, parodharmo. He's not talking about worldly varnashram dharma here. He's talking about paramadharma, parodharmo. For all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So he's separating service, Bhagavad Bhakti, right, from anything in relation to ordinary varnashram. Because it's a haitukiya pratyata, no personal motive, and it's uninterrupted, constant relationship with the Lord through service, right? And again, that also answers the question of, well, there's so many different scriptures, so many different occupational duties, right? How do we relate to them all? How do we reconcile all these things? Like Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Cast out all of that ordinary dharma and just surrender unto me, right? It doesn't mean, like when we used to hear it, oh, give up all religions. Oh, don't be a Christian, don't be a Muslim, don't be a whatever, No, when it says dharma, those may or may not be included. Any religion has validity to the extent that it is aligned and follows or has some connection with the conceptions of Vedic literature. Vedic literature, the bhakti is not a religion. It's not a worldly religion. It's the eternal. It's the Jaiva Dharma, the eternal function of the soul. We're not talking about worldly religion. So, this is the parodharmo, haitukiya pratyata. And only that, the atma suprasidati, the atma will be satisfied. What atma? Sometimes people translate that, oh, that's the way I become satisfied. No, that means Paramatma, Krishna. That is the only way that Krishna, the Supreme Atma, will be completely satisfied. But by that, all other Atmas will also be satisfied. Like you water the root of the tree, all the leaves, all the branches, everything become satisfied, right? So then, what happens? You do that bhakti, you do that parodharmo, Bhagavad Bhakti, then what happens? Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ohaitukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So that which people seek independently, all kinds of knowledge, the jnanis, the philosophers, those who are determined and fixed to elevate themselves beyond this material world, they do that by the process of philosophical consideration and also restraining and detaching themselves from all things material. But that process itself, independent of bhakti, very difficult, and it only gets you to a certain level. But the results of that, and beyond that, by doing devotional service, automatically all the fruits of both karma and jnana are realized in an extraordinary way. And what kind of knowledge? Right? Vigyan, transcendental knowledge. Why is it called Vigyan? V means not sometimes, right? Like when you go to India, they call a Westerner a Videshi, right? Because a Deshi is somebody who lives in India, right? And a Videshi is like a foreigner, right? But Vigyan means that which is not mundane knowledge, is transcendental, realized knowledge, right? So you get automatically causeless knowledge and detachment, right? So then, okay, what about these occupational duties? It says, Dharmasya hyapavargasya, narto rutayo kopate, nartasya dharmai kantasya, kamo labhaya hismita. Okay, back to, well, what about my occupational duties? What about my, I'm a Brahmin, I'm a Kshatriya, I'm a Vaishya, I'm a Shudra. I have to do these things. Pious people have a natural and appropriate attachment to fulfilling their social responsibilities, right? For themselves and for the good of society, right? And these are not meant to be given up just willy-nilly. These are meant to be stepping stones and meant to align the soul with duty to Bhagavan, right? But the ultimate purpose of these is to bring one to the stage of understanding that my highest and only duty is direct service to God. So all occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So we're getting some clarification here. He's described parabhakti, parabhakti, paradharma, but now he wants to make sure they understand that it's different from ordinary varnashram. Make it clear that while you're performing your occupational duties, you should not in any way be aspiring for impersonal liberation or any kind of material gain. Everything is only meant for the service of Krishna, right? Rid yourself of these other motives. Otherwise you won't understand, you won't come to pure bhakti. But the beauty of bhakti, and then he gives another one to make sure we understand. Kama sulendriya pritir labho jivete yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa nato yascheha karma be. Okay. Think about this verse. We're all aspiring bhaktas, right? We're trying our best. But we're immersed in this ocean, this worldly ocean of material desires, attachments, all this. But here, Sutta Goswami is telling them, and these are sages, these are elevated people, right? But still, until one has come to the stage of pure bhakti, within the heart, there'll be many seeds of material desires still waiting to come out, many subtle desires. So, once again, life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of works. So take care of yourself. Live a regulated, live a healthy life. But for what purpose? For pursuing your bhakti, right? Not lifting weights and going to the gym and doing all these things, excessively. Yeah, you might need to go to the gym a little bit, get a little older, to keep the blood flowing and pumping and all like that. But not, to get all kinds of muscles and look good and be strong and all that. Simple. That's why the yoga system is so amazing, because it just works on keeping everything healthy, circulating the life airs, keeping one balanced. But a yogi doesn't come out like this, Yogis, they're different kind of physiognomy. So, then he says, that's a good verse. Okay, so we're talking about the absolute, pro dharma, bhakti to the absolute. What is the absolute? Because a lot of the people in this audience are Brahmavads, impersonalists, not Mayavads, but Brahmavads. Non-envious, but not having understood the highest level. Or maybe they're worshiping the super soul within, like the yogis on the higher planets, right? So he wants to bring us up to understand that there are actually 3 levels, right? So, Vedanti tat tattva vedas tattvam yajganam advayam bharameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. Okay, so there's gradation. It's not that the conception of Brahman is wrong, it's just not the highest, right? Or Paramatma for that matter. And that we've gone into in more detail at different times. What are the limits or inadequacies of these other levels of realization? The awakening of the genuine quality of love and selfless reciprocation with the Lord can't awaken in these lower stages. The real potential, the real nature of the soul doesn't manifest in Paramatma or Brahman realization. You may be actually situated on the spiritual platform, but you haven't awakened your Nitya Dharma, your relationship with God, with Bhagavan. So then this one. Touch Chudadano Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyantyatmani Chatmanam Bhakta Shuddha Grahitaya. So 3 levels, but then the seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, right? Because we heard that by doing bhakti, you get knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service. How? In terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. You just can't make up your own process. Right? Oh, I'm going to serve God by this, by that. Like in the Kali Yuga. Oh, let's go to the Bhakti Fest. And everybody's got a whole different idea what Bhakti is. Oh, Bhakti is devotion. Oh, devotion to nature, devotion to the animals, devotion to my family, devotion to my friends. The inclination for love is there in the heart. But as long as we're within the body, it's misdirected, incompletely realized. Because unless we're connected with the ultimate object and source of love, it can't be really expressed fully. Neither to those who we would like to express it to, and especially not to God. But once you connect with God, then you can really show love to all living beings, to everyone. It's only the self-realized soul that actually is the most beloved to and of all humanity, right? So then, then we have Atak pumbir dvija shreshtas varnashrama vibhagasaha sonushtetasya dharmasya sangsidir haritoshanam. So now he brings it back. O best of the twice born. He's addressing all these sages, right? It is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. So we bring it all the way back to the verse 6. All those things that you have to know to make sure that this is truly pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not this, but it's this. So everything that you have understood about your duty, about the different divisions of society, whether one is a student, whether one is a grihasta, whether one is a vanaprastha, whether one is a sannyas, whether one is a shudra, a vaishya, a kshatriya, a brahmana, right? Whatever stage of life or occupation you have, your purpose, sangsidir haritoshanam. The perfection of all of that is to please the personality of Godhead, right? Get back to that. Get back to that. So what does that mean? Therefore, tasmad ekena manasa, right? Manasa, mind, ekena, one-pointed. Bhagavan sattvatam pati, shotavya kirtitavyascha, jaya pujas chanityada. So since the highest perfection is to please the Lord, therefore, with one-pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Okay, get that? So therefore, this is what you should do. How to do it? Because I'm saying worship the Lord. How? Hear about, glorify, and remember. What is that? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. The three main limbs of bhakti, as spoken by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th chapter later. Right? So, hear about, glorify, hear, Shravanam, glorify, Kirtanam, remember, Vishnu, Smaranam. And worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. That's it, in a nutshell. Oh, okay. Then, how do we do that? He gives us more encouragement. He says, with sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of karma, reactionary work, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? All right, okay. Reinforce that idea, remembering. Then, how do we get to that? All right, I want to do that, but I don't really have much taste. I'm not clear how to do it, right? Again, so many instructions. Okay, here from the Vedanta Shruti, but I'm still, all right, I accept that, but how do I do it? Now this verse. This is the verse that leads up to those 3 verses he quoted. I mean, they all lead up, but this is how to get the benefit, how to do it. Shushusho Shradadhanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudev. So, Shotavyas Kirtitavyas Cha, right? You get affinity for hearing and chanting and the capacity for remembering. How? By serving great devotees, pure devotees. This is the gateway. This is the process. This is the key, right? You have to serve great devotees, and then automatically a taste will arise. If you try to do it independently, there are many people who begin the process of devotion, and then they think, oh, well, it's based on hearing and chanting. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Vrindavan. I'm going to go to Mayapur. I'm going to go somewhere, and I'm just going to sit down and chant and study. and then I'll become a devotee because I'm hearing and chanting and remembering. But they leave out the idea of Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra, the idea that these activities are empowered only by one's connection with Sri Guru. Sri Guru gives mantra. Sri Guru gives instruction how to chant. Sri Guru imparts the seeds of the power of these mantras, of the identity that we have in our Gayatri mantras, our Gauranga, Gayatri, our Gora Gayatri. All of these mantras are empowered by Sri Guru. And the purification that takes place, the requisite is to develop a sense of submissiveness and humility before the personality of Guru, who is the representative of the Lord. By serving that person, you are genuinely showing that you're humble, that you're submissive, and that this is what you truly want. But to independently go off and create your own process of service, it's not as effective, right? So, there's so many stories. There's one of Shankaracharya, which we recite because we accept Shankara as Lord Shiva. And he had this pastime where he had 6,000 sannyasi disciples. And they're all very learned in his, teachings. And they were all sitting by the bank, I don't remember which river. And they're all assembled, and he came and he said, "Are we ready?" And they said, "Yes." "Is everyone here?" "Oh, everyone is here, but that stupid disciple, the washer guy." He had one disciple who wasn't learned. He didn't know anything. He did everybody's laundry. He just served everybody. And so Shankaracharya said, We'll wait. And all the others said, "Oh, what are we going to wait for that moron? We don't have to wait for that guy." Anyway, they waited. Finally he came, and he was very humble and very apologetic. "Oh, I was doing the service for everybody. I'm sorry I'm late." And they're all looking at him, cross-eyed. But then Shankaracharya said, and I can't remember his name, but he said, "Please stand up and recite." And he gave him some complicated topic. And even though he wasn't learned, he didn't know Sanskrit, anything, but he was so submissive, he'd done so much service, and he had heard from his spiritual master attentively with that submissive, humble service mood. And he began to recite so eloquently, so beyond anything any of them had understood themselves. They went, "Oh!" And then that principle is there. It also applies because of personality. He's Lord Shiva doing a special mission, right? But for those who serve him nicely, they get that benediction. Right? So you have to serve, and then you gain affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva, and then it comes to those 3 verses, which we had heard before, right? The Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantas Dohyabadrani Vinanoti Sahritsatam Nastapraye Svabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Tadaraja Tamo Bhava Kamalo Bhadayaschaye Chaitaya Danavidam Stitam Sattve Prasidati. I'm going to read Srila Prabhupada's translations. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So sometimes this is taken as, Nishta, we've come to that. I skipped the first one. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, was the Paramatma in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So developing that urge comes from that service to great personalities, right? Shushusho Shadadanasya Vasudeva Kata Ruchi. Vasudeva Kata Ruchi. So this next verse, irrevocable service, that is, this now we're entering into a Sakti, right? Sometimes because it's Bhakti or Bhavati Naishtaki, people say, oh, this is Nishta. But it's not the Nishta that we talk about where we have beginning to emerge from the Kanishta stage. All of the qualities that we hear about from Shraddha and Nishta and Ruchi, they're all part of Bhakti and they all expand and mature and mature. So the kind of Nishta that we're talking about here is that realization of the awakening of my identity. And this Nishta is the deep attachment to the Lord and the Lord's devotees and all the processes of Bhakti, but the attachment to the Lord in a very personal way. And then, thus established, thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive, scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead and the stage of liberation from all material association. So that's very important, the way Srila Prabhupada translates that. First of all, unalloyed goodness. We're not talking about ordinary sattva of the material mode. We're talking Shuddha sattva. Unalloyed goodness means no mixture with rajas or tamas. So that's the transcendental level, right? And then transcendental knowledge means vigyan, realized knowledge. Okay, so this is like a rapid fire overview, right? Rapid fire. Obviously, we didn't get anything in great detail, but I just wanted to give like a overview so that we can appreciate Bhaktivinoda Thakur's use of these verses of the Bhagavatam and what they mean and how they relate to this stage of asakti. And it should reinforce our desire to perform those limbs, serving Sri Guru, hearing, chanting, remembering. The more we do that in the appropriate mood, humility, lamentation, right, of our own situation, regard for devotees, not just great devotees, but all the associates, all the servants of the Lord, and ultimately compassion and kindness to all living entities. So that's part and parcel of spiritual realization. So anyway, we'll stop here and continue on verse 3 of Bhajan Hasya tomorrow, offering obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, to Srila Gurudev, to all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, our exalted Guru Varga. Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.